Welcome to Outreach Connection, focusing on topics and issues that reach our communities with the love and the power of Jesus Christ.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Outreach Connection. I am Sandy Axton, your host, and we are blessed to have you with us today. But before I begin and introduce my guest, I would like for us to go to Mark 16 and 15. In the Word, it says, "And he said unto them, Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." We want to be able to connect with everybody and share the gospel with them. Today, my guest is Chris Powell, and he's with Chaddock's Foster Adoption Service. Chris, it's great to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're doing a great thing there at Chaddock's and serve a very interesting position and everything there and what you deal with on a daily basis.
Yes.
And stuff there. Can you tell us maybe in the beginning here a little bit about yourself and how you got connected with Chaddock's?
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Quincy, and I went to college at QU for a little while. I ended up finishing my bachelor's degree at Culver Stockton College, and I ended up going into a psychology program. I've always had an interest in that and working with communities and understanding people and trying to better our communities. I was able to kind of learn about that in doing psychology and some sociology stuff. And after college, I went and lived in St. Louis for about 5 years, and I worked in the outpatient behavioral health area.
Oh, okay.
Mainly with adults, but then we started to also work with some children. And kind of got homesick when I was there and was looking for something closer to home where I would be able to kind of have the same sort of impact, work with families and children and just people who were struggling and needed help. And living in Quincy, I knew about Chaddock. And so I was able to get connected with Chaddock. And luckily I got hired on as a caseworker, which I did casework for about 11 years. And casework, with what that is, I would work with the children and families who were in the foster care system, trying to work through the court systems to get children back. And so I would assist them and just sort of oversee those cases. And so I did that for 11 years. And then in early of this year, DCFS, who kind of sets the positions for agencies, the private agencies that work with DCFS, developed this position. And it was a position that was supposed to try and help with recruitment and retention of foster parents, was kind of the main goal. It has some other little components to it, but that's really the main focus of it. And I just developed a passion for that over doing casework, getting the experience, realizing that there's a need for more foster parents in our community. So in March of this year, I went into that position. And so that's what I've been doing from March until now, is working with the caseworkers, the licensing workers, the marketing team at Chaddock, and just sort of everybody to figure out how can we better meet this need in our community. So that's how I kind of ended up getting from where I was to here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now what is the area again that you cover?
So the areas that we cover are Adams County, Pike County, Brown County, and Hancock County. Those are the four counties that Chaddock serves when it comes to foster care.
Okay. So now tell us again a little bit about where the children come from and so forth at the beginning there, like that.
So the children would come from one of those counties. What would happen is when a case is opened, DCFS is going to go and investigate. There's a process of somebody has a concern of abuse or neglect of a child. They would call the DCFS hotline and make that report. The hotline worker would then determine whether or not there's enough evidence to substantiate an investigation. Sometimes what they can do is they can just take it as information and they say this doesn't reach the level of an investigation, and then sometimes they will say, no, this reaches the level of an investigation, we need to have an investigator go out and actually look into this. And so an investigator would do that, and an investigator would do a lot of different things. They would check with the child, they would meet with schools, they may meet with a number of different people to kind of gather all the evidence and make a determination of what's going on with this family and this child. What's the level of severity when it comes to possible maltreatment of a child. And some of these children, the maltreatment can be so severe that the investigator may feel we need to take protective custody of this child. So this child needs to be removed from the home. When that happens, the first step is always, can we try and place this child with a family member? Is there a safe, appropriate family member that we can place this child with?
Sure.
Sometimes that doesn't work out. And in those instances, then you need a traditional foster home. You just need to have somebody who, it's not a family member, it's not somebody that may know this child, but they have it in their heart that they want to be a home to care for these children in need. And then that the investigator would take that child, place them in that home, and then it would reach the court level, and then the court would determine shortly after, does this child need to remain in care, and go through the court process and work with this family on determining whether or not this child needs to stay in care, and do the parents of this child need to work through correcting the conditions that brought this child into care. And that's how it all kind of starts. And it can be a shorter process, a very long process. A lot of it depends on, the parents that are working with these agencies. And but we have desperately needed to be able to have foster homes that can care for these children, because it may not be this week or next week that a child comes into care, but children are always coming into care. Unfortunately, that's what goes on, even in the communities around us.
Yes.
As much as we may not want to think about it, you may want to think this is a big city problem.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
There are children that are being mistreated here too.
Right.
And so that's kind of the initial process of the homes that we have and the kids that we serve in the counties.
Okay, and I noticed that on your website, there is a quote on there about that every child deserves a family, and that is so true. So basically, how many children do you have now?
Right now we have approximately 250 children in foster care. That's what Chaddock serves.
Wow.
So Chaddock is a private, what they call a private service agency with DCFS. It's most of the cases that are managed are actually by private agencies. It's not by DCFS. DCFS is the state-ran institution, I guess, if you will, that oversees, the Department of Children and Family Services. But most of once the child comes into foster care, they actually contract a lot of that out. And Chaddock is one of those agencies. There are a couple other agencies around that do it too. DCFS does provide some case management as well, but Chaddock does have the majority. We have about 80%, and in that 80%, we have about 250 children that are currently in care.
Wow. So now, you mentioned earlier when we were talking and visiting that you had an event where you were seeking foster parents and so forth. And tell us a little bit about that.
We did. We had an event in mid-October. It was October 18th. We had it at our Chaddock Knowledge Center, which is on our main campus there off of 24th and kind of in between Main and State Street. And it was an event where we had done a lot of marketing, trying to push it on social media. We did some press stuff to try and get the message out that we need foster parents. And we had an amazing turnout. It was mainly focused for Adams County, but really, it could have been for many of the counties that we serve. We could have had somebody come and show interest. What we were trying to do is get prospective families, parents, to inquire and see if they wanted to be interested in being a foster parent. And so we spent about an hour with about 12 different parents and families.
That's awesome.
Talking to them, explaining to them what the process is, explaining what it means to be a foster parent, answering their questions. And all 12 of the individuals and the families that were there did do the inquiry forms. They wanted follow-ups. We're having a lot of success with that.
Awesome.
Which is just amazing. Sometimes we wonder, are we kind of tapped out in this community? If the people that we have that are going to be foster parents, are they going to be? So it's really encouraging.
Right.
When you have that kind of a turnout, because sometimes you just wonder, because you don't know, I remember being somewhat fearful because we were getting up to a few days before and I was just like, we don't really have many inquiries. We don't have many. And then right before the event, we just had so many, and it ended up being an excellent turnout.
Awesome.
And so our plan is, that was the one we did in October, but each quarter we're going to try and do this. In the beginning of next year, probably in January sometime, we're going to be looking at going into Hancock County and doing the same thing, and trying to see what people, families in Hancock County would be interested in being foster parents, because these are the counties we serve. We need foster parents in the Carthage area. We need families here in Quincy. We need families in Pittsfield, because these children end up, that's where they come from.
Right.
And we want to be able to keep them as local and close to home as possible. The last thing we want to do is see children have to get split up, sibling groups split up, and children remove further away from what they're familiar with.
Right.
That doesn't help them. It's just more trauma to them. And it doesn't help the family work to try and reconcile and do the repair that really that's what we're all about. That is initially what we're always about, is trying to repair these families and bring these children home to a safe environment.
So for instance, if I came to that and filled out the paperwork and did, that piece of that, then what happens beyond that if I want to be a foster parent?
So if you were to make an inquiry, if you were to call or, come to one of our events and fill out an inquiry form, a licensing worker would follow up with you, and they would explain to you that, these are the next steps, that you have to do a DCFS application. And it just asks all kinds of different questions, a lot of demographic informations, household questions. And so you would fill that out. You would have to be fingerprinted. Every foster parent is required to be fingerprinted. And then you have to do, it's called the Pride class. And it's mainly online or through Zoom now. And it's scheduled every so often. It's quite frequent, so that way, people aren't hanging out there going, when am I going to be able to do this so I can become a foster parent? And it's 30 hours, I believe it's 30 or 31 hours of this training. And it covers all kinds of stuff. I mean, it covers just the system, the foster care system, the court system. It covers trauma. There's really been a big push for foster parents to be trauma informed, understanding that, while we want children to feel as included as any other child can feel, you want them to, if you have your own biological children, you bring in a child into your home, you want them to be treated equally. They should be your foster child when they're in your home. They're your child. But you also have to remember, these children went through trauma. Being removed from your biological parents is a trauma. And that in itself, and then the trauma that they went through that brought them into care, because there was some sort of abuse or neglect that was occurring that even brought them into care. So there's a heavy presence of that, of making sure that they're trauma informed. And then once you get through the Pride training, then technically it's just a matter of some more paperwork on the agency's end, and then you can become a foster parent. And you would kind of be on, we have everybody, all the caseworkers, we all have it. We have this big spreadsheet of all of our foster parents. And, foster parents are also always asked, like, do you have an age range? Are you interested in infants? Are you interested in 5 to 10-year-olds? Are you interested in teenagers? And so we always try and honor that. I mean, I'm not saying that there may never be a time where we're really looking for a home where we're calling saying, hey, I know that you said you would like a 5 to 10-year-old, but would you take a 14-year-old? We really need a home for this child. And then that's how it works. And like I said, you may become a foster parent, you may get through that process, and you may be thinking, I'm not getting a phone call. Why am I not getting a phone call? And
Yeah.
it may be a few weeks, it may be a couple months, but you will eventually get that call.
Right.
So that's kind of how that all works.
Okay. That was my next question about how do you determine, what children go and if they have a preference and stuff like that too. So out of your involvement in being there with the children, is there a story that you can share with what you've seen as far as happening, like that with a child being placed and being able to see them being foster and then eventually adopted and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I have stories that, I'll give you one of an adoption where I've seen children who come into care and, they develop amazing relationships with their adoptive parents and the biological parents too. Sometimes we just have those scenarios, which I think is always sort of the best, is when you've got a family that's able to care for this child that ends up being an adoption, but this adopted child is also still able to have some sort of safe, good connection with their biological families.
Sure.
And consistency is really important because it's always one of those things where, and I know you and I were kind of talking about that before the program started, is if you're going to maintain a relationship with biological families, if an adoption does occur, then it's important for that biological family to maintain consistency.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's more trauma,
Right.
This
right.
child, you're trying to be able to keep that connection alive with them, which is very important because a lot of the research shows that even infants that are placed into foster care or adopted and may have not even really had a connection to their biological family, there's still a void there. It's like, whether they find out when they're 20 or 22 or they find out when they're younger, kids know. Something's missing, that piece is missing, that puzzle is not put together exactly like it was intended to be. And so I have had those stories where and those are some of the coolest stories to me, are the ones where you've been able to see a child have a great relationship with their adoptive parent, but yet they're able to still maintain some connection with their biological parent. And the other thing that's neat is seeing through the process when you have a foster parent do what we like to call, it's parallel parenting, where they kind of go along with the biological parents and work with them. And it's kind of like they're another support for them.
Right.
It doesn't always happen, but it's always great when it does.
Yeah.
And then it's odd to me. I think it was a blessing to me, to be honest with you. When I first came to Chaddock and started as a caseworker, the first case I've ever had, and I've had a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've worked with a lot of kids. The first case I ever had was my most successful case to date, which I think is interesting. I think it's probably because sometimes people get into this field and they're very overwhelmed. They have a good heart, but they it can wear you down. You're dealing with a lot of stress. You're dealing with a lot of people who don't always get along with you. It can be kind of conflicting sometimes. And I think I got really lucky to work with a family that helped me kind of have some hope, and I got to work with them in a way where I saw the challenges that this job can have in working in the foster care system, but I also got to realize that the families that were working with, these biological families, some of them just really need help.
Yeah.
And so that initial family that I had, they got their children back quite quickly. They just did exactly what they were being asked to do.
Right.
They totally took responsibility for why their children were in care, and they raised very good children, and they appreciated the foster parents that took care of their children while they were in care. You don't always get that a lot.
Wow, that is great.
It was really cool to see that, and now to see them, I still every now and then will see them out in the community. And the biological mom, and the dad will approach me sometimes and just they'll ask me how I'm doing. And then I ask, how they're doing. And just to see how successful they are now.
Right.
To go from where they were, which, they would admit was just the worst in their life, the worst moments of their life, to really turn around and now be extremely successful.
Yeah.
That to me is really powerful. And it's because it just goes to show that sometimes it's not just about getting children back home to a safe environment, which is a priority.
Right.
But sometimes what can happen is you can have just really amazing, successful stories out of this. You can have lives just totally turned around and transformed, whether it's with foster parents or the biological families we serve. So I think that's always really cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. So now that we're coming up to the holidays and everything, what about Thanksgiving and Christmas? What takes place for the children and stuff that are there?
Well, Thanksgiving, for foster children, they would celebrate, most likely they would celebrate with their foster parents, a typical Thanksgiving. Sometimes what we try and do is, again, I'm not a caseworker anymore, but I know when I was a caseworker, sometimes you're trying to navigate, these children start to develop relationships with their foster parents, but they also still have their relationships with the biological parents, and biological parents are visiting. And it all depends on where a case is at, but sometimes these visits maybe they're still supervised. Maybe we're still at the point where we feel like somebody has to supervise the interactions between the children and their biological parents. Sometimes it's unsupervised. So, as a worker, you're trying to navigate, can these children have time with both? Is it gonna be Thanksgiving Day, they're with the biological parents, and maybe their family, so they can be able to be with their biological family during Thanksgiving, or are they with the foster parents? A lot of it just depends on where a case is at. And that's kind of what goes on with foster care, but Chaddock as a whole, Chaddock actually just yesterday had their really big Thanksgiving event, which is mainly for the on-campus. But it doesn't mean foster kids can't go. I mean, it's really open to anybody, but it's more of an on-campus function. And, they have songs, they have a prayer, we have a catered meal brought in. They go around. Some people don't realize this. The Chaddock doesn't just serve, children in Illinois or Missouri or Iowa. They'll go around and the children will say the states that they come from and countries. Wow. I mean, so that's kind of interesting as a worker, especially if you're not on campus and you're not working with the residential children who are there or the children that are in the school. Somebody like me who works in foster and adoption, I don't always realize how wide of a population Chaddock really does serve. Right. It's not just a, community. While our community is important, it's not just our local community. Right. It's not just our state. It's not just our country. It's other countries that we're impacting. Wow. And so you get to hear that. And that's kind of cool always during Thanksgiving when they do that, when the kids will say what countries and where they're from. And families are able to come. I mean, the biological families are able to come and be a part of this. And it really is, it's a neat celebration. So that's Thanksgiving. And then Christmas, I think, is probably one of our favorite times for anybody working at Chaddock. We have awesome partnerships in the community with churches, with nonprofits, with other organizations. And whether it's children that are living on campus or whether it's children that are in foster care, each child, this starts back in September. We're given lists to fill out, ask the children, ask the foster families, what do the children want? And we have these lists, we fill them out, or we have the foster parents fill them out. It goes to our development department, which kind of oversees all the donations and stuff like that comes in. And these children get matched. They all get matched to somebody. Yeah. And it is almost a guarantee every Christmas that the children will get their lists fulfilled. Yeah. And if something's not fulfilled, our development team at Chaddock recognizes the importance of children being able to have as normal of a Christmas as they can, as meaningful of one as they can. And so, I mean, if there's something really special that didn't come in, go take a gift card and go buy it for them. We'll do that. Or the other thing that's really neat is we have, out of all the other extra stuff that we get that comes in, we have a room that is, it would remind you of the size of a big living room that's just full. of toys.
Wow.
Just absolutely full of toys. We call it Grandma's Closet.
Grandma's closet.
Grandma's Closet.
Hey, I like that because I'm a grandma, so I know that.
So,
Well, we're coming close to the end of our program. We're down to around 3 minutes. And so is there a special need maybe that the community or the area could help fill, possibly at Chaddock?
yeah, I mean, I think that foster parents is definitely the need.
Right.
Even though we had a very successful event, and like I said, we're going to try and do another one in January in Carthage, and each quarter we're going to try and go into these other counties that we serve. The need for foster parents. I was telling you before we came on is when I started a little over 10 years ago, we served, I believe it was around 60 to 90 children when the first year, a couple of years I was in foster care. Mm-hmm. We are now 250 children.
Wow.
That's
a large increase.
Yeah, over 10 years.
Right.
And we haven't seen the foster parents keep up pace with the amount of foster parents that we need to be able to serve these children. We have amazing foster parents, but a lot of them are at capacity. They can't take other children. There's always limits.
Right.
You know, DCFS sets
Yeah.
limits. You can only have this many children in your own.
Right.
So that's the need. So if there's anybody who it's on their heart, you know, where they want to know about being a foster parent, learning about what's the process, they can contact us. They can go to our social media on Facebook to Chaddock. They can go on our website. They can call us. I think that's going to be on the screen, right? Yeah, and so that's the main need, is being able to be a foster parent, to be able to help these families heal.
Awesome.
And just prayer. I
Yeah.
think that too.
Yeah.
I mean, praying for these children and these families.
Right. Speaking about prayer, would you mind praying for our watching audience
Absolutely.
today?
I'd love
Thank you, Chris.
Father God, I'm just so blessed and thankful for this opportunity to be able to talk about this need in our community. I'm thankful for ministries like Chaddock. I'm thankful for ministries like WTJR, for this outreach connection, being able to recognize that, you know, we need to get these things out to our community, to our state and our world, that you know, we have children who are in need. We have children who need safe, loving homes. We need people who are willing to open up their homes and provide a safe place for them while healing can occur. And God, we know that healing occurs through you. You are the ultimate healer, that if we put our trust and we put our faith in you, that things can get better. You are our hope. And God, I just pray those things. I just pray for hope. I just pray for continued growth in our foster parent needs, so we can serve these children and serve them well. Because this is a community that is near and dear to my heart. I've grown up here. It's something that is very passionate to me, and it's passionate for these ministries, and I know that. And God, I just thank you. I thank you again for this opportunity, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Lord bless.
Contact us at Outreach Connection, WTJR 222 North 6th Street, Quincy, Illinois 62301.